we had a king's breakfast, steak and eggs. And the Navy guys couldn't do enough for us, really. I mean, they were making sure that we were content, had plenty of coffee and all this sort of thing. And they were right beside us all the time. And there is where I started realizing the Navy corpsman, what he was all about. We got so sick, like I say, that we were leaning over the side and we were hitting the fish, And when I landed on Red Beach 1, a lot of things happened before I got onto Red Beach 1. I'd like to do that because we were lined up out here in the area about 300 yards, I would say, and facing the beach. And the Japanese they surprised us. We had more military hitting us, artillery, from the ocean, from the LSTs to the beach. There was just an unbelievable curtain of artillery shells ripping into the ocean water. And we were looking at that and there's no way we're going to be able to get through all that. But the bow doors opened up and out we came. And we bobbed and weaved is what we did all the way into the beach. And what happened was I would say we were probably about maybe 400 yards out, 500 yards, something like that. And there was this great big battle wagon sitting in front of us, parked parallel to the beach. And we didn't know what it was, the name of it or anything like that. But that thing was huge. And so I went at the stern of that battleship and the mountain, Suribachi. That's where I was at. The mountain was here, Tennessee Battalion was here like this. And we went around the stern of that battleship, and I looked up like I was looking up at a 3-story building, and it was on there was Tennessee, the battleship Tennessee. That battleship was firing so hard into the island that it was tilted like this, and the deck was exposed to the water. Ocean water was splashing up on the deck all the way along here, just to give you an idea how powerful those 16-inch turret guns were. They're just sitting like that, just one right after another. Boom, 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 boom. And as we came around the end of that stern, we saddled up alongside the Tennessee and headed towards the first turret gun. And then we were supposed to turn and head in. And so we did this. Well, before we got to that beach, the M-track, I looked up to the bow of the Tennessee to see if my buddies were making it okay around that Tennessee. And I looked up there. Okay, they got hit, blown completely out of the water. There was just nothing left but trash. And nobody came back up. They all went down. And the next shell was, see, the people on Suribachi could observe and watch us. They could see us. And I could tell the first shell landed at the bow. The next shell landed about between us and the bow, about halfway. And in that area, an M-track and a Navy dive bomber was flying overhead. And just to give you an idea, the coverage we were getting, the Navy dive bomber was strafing the beach, and the Tennessee battleship, 16 and 14-inch turret guns were firing away into the island. And then the Marine Corps Corsair fighter planes were up into the sky and diving down into that mountain. They disappeared into the mountain and back up. And I could see the pilot sitting in the seat there. That motor was just screaming. There was 4 of them, I believe it was, if I remember correctly, 4 of them. They went down in that volcano and back up again, back up in the sky and came around. What they were trying to do, I realize now, but what they were trying to do was keep the heads down of the snipers so they couldn't observe what we were watching this coming in. When the first M-track went down around the bow, and then the next one down, right next to me, about 15 feet from me or so. And it was hit and blown completely out of the water. And I saw a leg kinked like this, like an L shape, and the hip was still attached. And it was flying through the water, up through the air, came back down, splashed into the water. And what was so ironic was that from where we were at, going into the beach, the water was already bloody red. And when that M-track went down, and it was one of my buddy's legs, I could see a pack and a canteen swirling around in the water where that bomb went down into the water. And that canteen was following that pack. So the water was already bloody red before we got to the beach. I mean, it was all just nothing but blood. And I put it this way, the killing didn't start until we got on the island or anything like that. It started out there in the water. A lot of Marines were killed out there. And we didn't think we were going to make it in because there was the M-track at the bow, and then the M-track between us and the bow went down, and we were next. And I knew we were going to be next because that was the way they were catching us. And I was on the outside edge of the M-track with my arm up on the railing like this, and actually that shell came right down right in through here, and it splashed water all over all of us. We had a lot of water on our M-track. And we went on in, and we got up to there was a bank there that was the third M-track that was hit. The third one was on the other side of the mountain, and it got hit. I don't know how in the hell we got through all that, because there were 3 M-tracks that were hit before we hit the beach, and we were the only ones going in. And when we hit that beach, we moved across a shallow part of the beach, and then we had a bank and on in, and the M-track spun around, the rear gate opened up, and out we came. And I got about 10 feet from my M-track, and then I got hit there. I got hit right in the hip, and it knocked me clean off my feet. And I was checking myself out to see how bad everything was. I had a lot of pain running down my leg. And I stuck my hand down my pants to see if I was bleeding. And what I had was a big lump. I didn't, the shell or the bullet, whatever it was, didn't go into my leg. And there was a guy at the end of Odiyama Airfield number 1 that was yelling, he says, "I need help over here." And I looked over at him. His whole backside was nothing but phosphorus shells. The phosphorus shell hit his pack and just ripped the whole backside of his back out. And I got over there to him, and I had to hobble to get over, but by God, I wanted to get there. You know, he was really hurting a little bit. And I was hurting too, but you know, I just had a fighting spirit. Damn it, I'm going to make it, and I'm going to get over there to him. And I did, and he was going like this, trying to pull the straps off his shoulders, but I could tell he was hurting so much that he couldn't really pull his arm back and get the straps off. And so he was fighting me, and he wasn't crying or anything like that. He was just struggling. And I grabbed my K-bar, which is a knife about this long, and I cut the straps and pulled the pack off. His whole backside was mutilated. I mean, it was just meat to every fight, and the smell was terrific. And I was working on, I used my fingers trying to scrape that stuff off, and I was burning my fingers. And so then I quit doing that, and I took my K-bar, and I was trying to flick some of that phosphorus off of his back. And about that time, Mike Thurman come running up, and he says, "Okay, Jack, I got him." Well, I was kneeling down on his left side, and I turned around, and there was a Japanese who was about this far, and I just had enough room to squeeze myself in between my buddy and this Japanese. And I knelt, and so when I turned around, I had to jump over the body of this Japanese. And as I was doing that, I happened to look down at his feet, and I don't know why I did that, but I looked down at his feet, and here his tennis shoe was a tennis shoe This was all one piece, and then the shoal was also one piece, but it was separated from the rest of the tennis shoe. And I thought that was for climbing, palm trees. Well, I was wrong. And so when I spun around, I jumped over him, and I saw, like I say, saw his shoes and all that. Then I took off on a dead run. I heard some guy yelling on the other side of the airstrip, "I need help over here." And so I got on the airstrip, and until this day, I don't know how I got through that airstrip because there were bullets flying in front of me. I thought for sure I was going to get hit, but I didn't. I just to this day I can't believe it. And this is one bullet after another. And I got over there to him, and he says, "Okay, you cover this part of this airstrip, and I'll go down to the other end and cover the end of the airstrip. We got 3 bombers coming in, B-29s coming in." And I says, "Okay, I got it." And he took off. And so then I got down between the crossfire right in here, and I kept looking out over the ocean water, and pretty soon here I saw 3 B-29s just skidding over the top of the water. There was one in front that was up a little bit higher, but there was those other 2, they were just barely skinning the water. And I thought, my God, they're not going to make it. And their engines were out, and the B-29 in the front. So in other words, I saw the first B-29s trying to make it on Iwo Jima, and the engines were out on the right side, and the left side the engines were still running, and so the plane was kind of like this coming in. I thought, oh, the nose of that bomber just stuck clear out here like this, and he was low enough to where, my God, if he can just get that nose above that runway, he'll make it. And sure enough, he did. He just bounced up and he skidded across the runway or down the runway into a bomb hole, came back up. The front of that B-29 caught the other side of that bomb hole, bounced up. He skidded again into another bomb hole. So he went down into 2 bomb holes. And he finally came to a skidding stop in front of me. Meanwhile, before all this took place, I saw the crew of the B-29s run down the wing into the water. And I thought, my God, I hope you guys can swim, because they were still quite a ways out there. And I thought to myself, I hope you guys can make it. And they did. And as I was on the other side of that airstrip, and I saw the crew of that bomber that made it, I thought to myself, wow, that bomber that stopped right square in front of me, really. I couldn't have been any more than 100 yards from me to that ship. And I thought, boy, you guys better get the hell out of that thing, because Japanese artillery will be coming in any minute. And here they come. They jumped out of the plane, and they were running and scattered everywhere. And there were some coming my way, and I went like this, to let them know I got coverage, get over here. And one of the guys, he was headed right for me. He jumped down beside me, and he slapped me on the back, and he says, "Damn, am I glad to see you." And I says, "I'm glad to see you too, but get your butt out of here, because I'm moving out. There's going to be Japanese artillery coming in any minute." And he was an officer. He didn't even argue with me, and I was just a PFC at that time. Everybody got out as far as I know, and I was going to tell you, when I was running across that airstrip, I did tell you that I think I had bullets flying around my feet. Yeah. And they were all dispersing in 4 different directions, getting the hell out of there. So he slapped it, and I said, "You better get the hell out of here, because I'm moving out myself." And he got up and took off. And so I saw these guys, they were clearing out of the area. So I thought, well, I better get out of here too, because the Japanese artillery would be coming in any minute. And so I took off, and I ran back across that airstrip, and I still ran into a lot of sniper fire, firing around my legs. And I made it to the other side of that airstrip, and here along the side of that airstrip were Japanese Zeros. fighter planes that were piled up along the side of that airstrip. The B-29 bombers were flying over Iwo Jima before we got there. They were dropping bombs before we got there. So I would say the Japanese, the B-29s were already trying to take charge of Iwo Jima before we got there. And the Navy also was doing the same thing, firing into the island before we got there. And so anyway, when I got back over to the other side, I decided to go through those Japanese Zeros to make sure there was not any snipers in there. And I was going through them, and I couldn't believe the protection that pilot had was nothing. He had a steel plate for his back, and a steel plate for his seat was about half an inch thick, and that was all. No wonder they're fast, you know. And there was just nothing there, and so I left the area. There's some other Marines that helped me out searching through them, the Japanese Zeros. So I left the area and I got back. I thought maybe I better get back to my unit, which I did. I found them, and we were still at the foot of Mount Suribachi. All this was going on around Mount Suribachi, all of this, and then on up the island. And I'll tell you what, we were there was no rest, day and night. I found my unit, and they were in a shallow area about this deep, maybe 14 feet by 14 feet area, and they were all in this shallow area. And I ran in there and jumped in with them, and then I got to the far side, and I was at the end of the Motor M airfield number 1. I was at the end there, and there were shells, you know, flying all around us, and well, there was a bunch of Marines that were at the end of the airstrip, going up the end, the bank of this airstrip, maybe about 15 feet high, or 10, 15 feet high, and there were a bunch of Marines that were going up the end of that airstrip, and I would say maybe a good 15, 20 of them. And I thought, my God, you guys are really exposed to open fire. Night in the morning, get that out of my mouth. 3 shells landed in there and blew those guys all to hell. John Basilone, have you heard of him? He's a famous star. He was in the Philippines, in Guadalcanal area, and he had the Congressional Medal of Honor. And John Basilone, him and I, you know, we were buddies, you know, we could talk to each other. And so he was leading his group up at the end of that airstrip when those 3 shells came in there. You know what I saw was nothing but blood and guts all over the place. All of those Marines were just ripped apart. You know what I saw? They were hanging to their rifles. Not one of them let loose of their rifles. And we were trained in the Carlson Raiders to hang on to your rifle, irregardless. And I admired them. So every one of them had their rifle in their hand, and their bodies were mutilated. And and that was where I saw John Basilone get killed, on the end of that airstrip. And then what happened there next was we were getting ready to move on ourselves, because we had a feeling the Japanese were observing us from the mountain. And that's what they were doing. They saw us down there. And so our commander yelled us, move out. And I don't think I got any more than 10 feet from where we were at. And 3 shells landed right in there where we were at. If we hadn't gotten out of there, I wouldn't be here today. And I thought I was hit by shrapnel. My whole backside was stung. My arms, my legs were stung. I thought I was being hit by shrapnel. And later on, I asked one of my buddies, "Can you check my back?" I said, "I got hit with something." And he did. He said, "Well, it looks like you're hit with lava rocks." I said, "Okay." But it stung my whole backside. That's how close we were to being ripped apart with those 3 shells. And we moved on down the airstrip. This is all around Motor Airfield number 1. I mean, we were there for 3 days, 4 days, like that. The second night we were there, a Japanese bomber come flying in around 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And he's flying low. And I was on the front line, and we had Japanese. We had to back up about, I would say, maybe 75 yards. We had to back up, retreat, I should say, because the Japanese were strong. I mean, they were just nailing us. They were killing my guy right and left. And so the Japanese bomber was coming from my left from over the ocean, and he was low. And I fired, it was, I fired right into that nose of that, where the machine gun was. And I fired right into that nose. And he was right over my head, because we were on the front line, and he was flying down the front line. And when he got over me, I was firing away at the bomb bay doors. And then as he got a little further beyond me, I was firing at the engines, two of them. There were two engines there. The Japanese Betty is the name of it. And so I fired into that. And I would say maybe I don't think 10 minutes went by. All be less than that. We heard a huge boom. The Japanese bomber crash landed on the other side of the island. Yeah, over here on this side. And we heard, so we thought, I'll bet you anything, I feel this way about it today, that we helped bring that bomber down, because I was not the only one that was firing at the engines and firing at the bomb bay door, because I was firing at both of them just as much as I could, boom, boom, boom. And so I would say that really and truly, I think we did bring that bomber down, because we heard a huge boom on the other side. And so we were still between Motoyama Airfield and Suribachi. This is where we were at, and we were supposed to take Iwo Jima in 3 days. No way, no way. And that was that word, that we were supposed to take Iwo Jima in 3 days. And so when morning came around, well, we had to move out of the area, and so we moved up alongside of Motoyama Airfield number 1 again, and got into Motoyama Airfield number 2. And so we still had a lot of days that we fought between the Suribachi and the Motoyama Airfield number 1 and number 2 and number 3. And so this was early in the morning when this took place. And so between there and Motoyama Airfield number 2, I mean, we had a lot of killing through there. There was a bunker that caught us dead, flat on our feet. We didn't realize there was a bunker back in there, and it kept us hung up around 10 o'clock in the morning, about 10:15 in the morning. And I want to go back to Ira Hayes and myself when we were coming up the side of the mountain, and the flag raising. Yeah, I met him in the White Islands. I saw him working on his telephone. He had a switchboard on his Jeep, and I thought, boy, I'm going to go over there and introduce myself. So I did, and after a while, I says to Ira, I says, can you teach me how to speak this Navajo language? And he said, yeah, sure, sit down. So he was working with me for about an hour. I couldn't speak that stuff to save my life. And finally he says to me, he says, did you say you're from South Dakota? And I said, yes. He says, when can you go back? He wanted to get rid of me. So this is where I really, truly met Ira. And then another day, maybe 2 days later, we were sitting behind the tent there talking, more or less kind of talking about our families and whatever. And Ira says to me, he says, Jack, he says, I want to tell you something. He says, my mom and dad didn't have a country. My grandpa and grandma did not have a country, but I love America, and I am going to fight for America. Now, I'm the only guy he told that to. Nobody else knows about it, what Ira said. I love America. So this is a side that people don't know about Ira, but all they know is about his drinking. And on another occasion, when he was asked to go to D.C. to sell war bonds, we were still going beside the mountain. And Ira says, I got to go to D.C. And I said, what the hell for? That's the way I said it. What the hell for? He said, well, they want me to go back there to D.C. and sell war bonds. What do you think? That's exactly what he said to me. What do you think? Because we were buddies, and he felt like I had time for him, I had respect for him, and I showed it. And I didn't give a damn about all the drinking he did. He was a brave American Indian. And so what do you think? And I told him, I said, well, Ira, if you can end this damn war and end all this killing, maybe you better go. He says, well, I don't want to leave you. And I says, I know, but it's probably more important for you to go to D.C. Now, if we hadn't had that conversation, I don't think Ira would have gone to D.C. It was important to him to know how I felt about him going to D.C. So then when he came back, we were up around Modiam Airfield number 2, and he looked me up and found me, grabbed me by the arm, and he says, now, let's take cover before one of us gets killed. I got something to tell you. I yelled back, okay. So we took off, and we took cover between some lava rocks. He says, I got to tell you something. I says, well, you don't have to tell me anything. He said, no, you're my buddy, and I want you to know that I want to apologize for what I did there in D.C. I said, I wanted to be one of the group. I wanted to be one of the guys there in D.C. They were all drinking cocktails. And he says, I couldn't handle that shit. And he says, I don't know how they get drinking. I can drink beer, but I can't drink their shit. That's the way he put it. Oh, man, did I laugh over that. And he says, it made me sick. So this is where he got into trouble. There's a movie out also about Ira Hayes and getting into fights on the street. That's a lot of bullshit, and he wasn't that kind of a guy. And a lot of my buddies, Jack, you better keep your mouth shut about Ira Hayes. You're going to get into trouble. And I said, hey, he's not here. I can talk for him. I can walk for him. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. I have been in Arlington Cemetery 3 times. The first time was when we were on a van there at Arlington. And one of the guys walked up to me. He says, aren't you Sergeant Thurman? I said, yes, I am. And you're a buddy of Ira Hayes? I said, yes. He says, would you like to see his grave? He was the driver of that van. And I said, yeah, I really would like to see his grave. He says, okay, jump in. There were 4 other Marines standing there. And they said, can we go with you? And I said, he asked the driver. Yeah, he says, jump in. So we all got into that van. And we drove to Ira Hayes' grave. The first thing I saw was an apron of grass that went up to his headstone. I would say maybe a good 12 feet area that went up to his headstone. I got a picture downstairs if you want to see it. And his headstone's it was centered in the 12 feet. And then the apron of green grass, and that's where his grave is at. And I was on this side of the grave. I had my hand on the headstone, and it was just as quiet as could be. And the rest of the Marines were standing there. And I says, I'm not a religious man, but I says, I believe in prayer. And would you mind if I was to say a prayer for Ira Hayes? Says, go for it. We'll kneel with you. So here these 4 Marines knelt down around Ira Hayes' grave. We did this twice. And said of our father at his grave. And to this day, thank God that I was able to do something like that. So Ira told me when he grabbed a hold of me, and he says, let's take cover before we get killed. And he was describing how he went along with all the entertaining and drinking and all that sort of thing. He said, I want to apologize to you. I said, You don't have to apologize to me. He says, well, I better apologize to my buddies. I said, no. I said, no. You don't have to apologize to anybody. You're a brave Indian. You know what he did? Reached out and grabbed me by the arm. That meant something to him. And that was the first guy to ever say anything like that to him, I'm sure. And so I said, you don't have to apologize anymore, Ira. Damn it, you're a brave Indian. Let's get to, and so that was the end of it there. We took off. Both of us took off. Then later on, we were still in the area of Battalion Airfield Number 1. I got so much to talk about in this area that we were at the end of Battalion Airfield Number 1. That's where all this was taking place, and Battalion Airfield Number 2. And so, what happened was I was crawling up the side. My commander says, "It looks like they need help up there on that flag raising." And we could see where they were struggling up there with the wind. There was a lot of wind up there, and they were struggling trying to get that flag pulled up, piece of pipe that they had. So the command officer said, "I want some volunteers to go up and help support them." And I says, "I'll go, sir." And then Ira Hayes was right behind me. He said, we were both going up the side of the mountain, and we got to the, I would say maybe within about 10 feet of that flag. And it went up, and we were covering snipers. I don't know where they were coming from, but there were snipers firing us all over. To this day, I go, God, I don't know why I didn't get hit, you know. And I did get hit right up here. And so what took place, this is what I want to talk about, is I want the people to know this, that the flag went up around 10:15 that morning on the 23rd. Okay, so that was the first flag. And I was there. I saw it go up. Ira Hayes and I both were. Ira says, "I'm going to go up and help him." I says, "Okay, I'll cover you. Go for it." And so he went up there, and he's the last guy in that group of pictures, a group of men that was up there. He's got his hands up in the air like this, and that's him. And so they finally got the flag up, and I was, like I say, maybe about 10, 15 feet down below the flags that went up. And then when the flag went up, we both went up and we ran around the area. And Joe Rosenthal, okay, what happened was, this is what gripes the holy hell out of me, is that when that flag went up at around 10:10 that morning on the 23rd, that flag flew until 3:30 in the afternoon. So that flag was up 5 hours. That flag is the first flag that saw the first killing on Iwo Jima. And this is what we were irritated about. That first flag saw the first landing, the first killing. And we feel that there's something unjustified there, that the second flag is getting too much credit. And a lot of people will think that the second flag saw the whole thing. No, bullshit. No, it didn't. The first 5 hours was on the first flag. And so that's where I'm at. When we finally got to the other end of the island, I looked back to see if I could see that flag. And I could tell that we could see that smaller flag. We could tell. We didn't need that big monster up there. And I have a feeling about that flag. That flag was a monster. And I have a stinking feeling. See, that first flag was only up 5 hours. Can you imagine all the killing that went on from the beach to that flag was? I mean, there were a whole area in there were dead Marines. There had to be at least 25, 30 Marines scattered around in there. They had to come in there with trucks to load those Marines up. And there was about 4 tiers of dead Marines on top of this flatbed truck. And as it went by me, their heads were hanging out, their mouth open, blood coming out, and their eyeballs and ears. So what happened is that the flatbed trucks had to come in there I'll get back to my original story. They had to come in there and load up all those Marines on board the flatbed trucks because the tanks could not come through. We needed tank support, and they could not come through. The captain of one of those tanks, I got to talking to him. He told me, he said, the worst thing to us is to run over a body. We did not want to run over a body. So they were trying to get all these dead Marines out of the area, load them up, and move them out of there so the tanks could come in, the Sherman tanks and the half tracks. And we were nothing but rifle fire at that point and machine gun fire. We didn't have tanks or anything like this for support, but we had a tank and a half track come up to us on this one bunker that would hit us up there just between Modiama Airfield number 1 and number 2. So anyway, this is what I want to say about the flag. That flag was saw the first killing, and I want people to know that. I was up there 5 hours. You have no idea how many Marines were killed. I mean, they were killed out there in the water also. 3 M-tracks went down before we got to that beach, but the flag didn't go up until the 23rd, of course. That's what I will say. But other than that, there was still a lot of killing going on. And like I say, there were Marines scattered everywhere. And I want to make sure that you people realize the importance of that first flag, how important it was to us to see that flag up there waving to us. I'm here, boys, is the attitude that we had. And we watched that flag all night long and all day long. It never came down. Every time an artillery fire shell would go off, it would light that flag up, and it was still waving up there in the breeze, red, white, and blue. I says, that's a sight I'll never forget. And we had dead bodies laying everywhere, and that's where I got hit, and so on. And the idea of the second flag, I don't want to say too much about the second flag, but there's something wrong there because the flag was too big in the first place. And between you and me, we have a feeling that was a burial flag that was carried on board ship. And I saw 2 burials at sea, and I could see where the body was completely covered by that flag. It was 8 foot, at least 8 foot long. And so that flag was huge. And we do know that that first flag was still there. And the second flag is getting credit that it shouldn't have. It was not there at the first landing. It was not there when we had the first killing. And I don't want you people to feel that that second flag was the king of the whole fight. It was not.